The introduction of flair techniques by DJ Flair of the Invisible Scratch Pickles began a new way of thinking and a huge milestone in the art of scratching. It paved the way for a new era of scratch styles and made it possible for new kinds of combos and patterns. The basic principle behind all flair techniques is to produce the most amount of sounds with the least amount of hand movements, either from your fader hand or your platter hand. So basically, flair techniques offer us a more efficient way of scratching. Like I said, more sounds with less movements. However, they require a different kind of coordination to all other techniques that came before them. They can feel a little bit strange to perform, and it's quite natural for beginners to struggle with them, but I'm here to break everything down into logical steps. There's a lot of variations of flair techniques, but today I'm going to focus on teaching you the most common and the most useful for you to move forward in your scratching, starting with the one-click flair orbit. The term orbit basically refers to any scratch technique that is symmetrical. So let's get ourselves ready to scratch. I'd recommend that you use a long sound, such as the classic R sample that I'm using today, which you'll find on the Digital DJ Tips starter kit. So load up the sample of your choice and make sure that you have it cued to the very beginning of the sound, which is also the very beginning of the waveform if you're looking at your screen. And also, before we begin, make sure that your crossfader is in the open position, because all flair techniques start and end with the crossfader in the open position. And it's always a good idea to learn this technique first of all with the deck paused until you've developed your coordination. As all controllers vary, you need to get familiar with the response of your jog wheel so that you're easily able to get back to the start of your sound whenever you need to. So for the one-click flair orbit, there's 4 steps involved, with each step producing one sound. So therefore it's a 4-note scratch technique. Here come the 4 steps. Step 1, push the platter forward, and as soon as you hear the sound, close the crossfader. Step 2, instead of pulling the sound backwards like we would for a chirp, we're now going to push the platter forward again, and at the same time we're going to open the crossfader. This is now the halfway point, so to make it symmetrical, we're going to do the same movements now in reverse. So step 3, pull the platter backwards, and as soon as you hear the sound, close the crossfader. And finally, step 4, pull the platter backwards again, and at the same time open the crossfader. This completes the one-click flair orbit, and if you've moved the platter in equal measures, you should be back where you started or thereabouts with your crossfader open and your sample cued to the beginning. So those 4 steps again: push the platter forward and close the crossfader. Push the platter forward again and open the crossfader. Pull the platter backwards and close the crossfader. And finally, pull the platter backwards again and open the crossfader. So if you're doing it correctly, your one-click flair orbit should produce 4 separate notes. So that's the one-click orbit broken down to the absolute basics for your benefit. But the next step to fully mastering this technique is to be able to execute it continuously and smoothly, rather in 4 jerky movements. So this time we're going to push the platter forward in 1 longer movement instead of 2 smaller separate movements. And as we do that, we're going to close and immediately open the crossfader to chop the sound into 2 pieces. So we've gone from doing this to this. Okay, so those 4 movements done in 1 smooth sequence would sound like this. Which I'm sure you'll agree sounds a lot more professional and smoother than this. So you may have noticed that when I'm doing them smoothly, my platter hand is basically doing baby scratches, which we already know produces 2 notes. But by clicking the crossfader once during each direction of the sound, we're able to produce a 4-note pattern. So we get 2 sounds for only 1 crossfader click, which is a more efficient way of scratching than transforming, for example, which only gives you 1 sound for each crossfader click. So if I was to try and produce 4 sounds by transforming, it takes a lot more effort. The final step to mastering one-click flares is to be able to do them whilst your scratch deck is playing, which is what you'll be doing most of the time when you're freestyle scratching. The only difference this time is that we no longer need to push the platter forward anymore, but instead we simply need to let go of the platter to release the sound before placing a hand back on it to pull the sound back to the beginning. So press play on your deck, but keep your hand on the platter until you're ready to start. Let go of the platter to release the sound and apply your crossfader click, then catch the sound by placing your hand back on it and pull the sound back to the beginning whilst applying another crossfader click. The one-click flare orbit will take you some time to master and to build speed, so start slowly at a tempo that allows you to perform the pattern cleanly. As you get more comfortable with it, challenge yourself by increasing the tempo of the beat you're practicing over, but be sure not to let your technique suffer on account of trying to get faster. Basically, don't rush and develop sloppy technique before you've built solid foundations, which applies to all scratch techniques. So to finish off, here's a demonstration of one-click flare orbits over a beat.